That's it, we're live.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, members. Good morning, officers. Welcome to our meeting of the Staffing Matters and Review Subcommittee. Today we have 4 items officially on the agenda, but I would also like just to add a 5th, which is to receive a verbal report from officers updating us on where we are with the test and trace isolation payments and the support there. So hopefully we can get members a bit more information. This is a remote meeting of the council. We are streaming live onto the council's YouTube channel. We're not in control of the comment section, the live comment section. So if you are using that, please do so considerately of others. Members, we have no apologies for absence. We are a full house of members this evening. Do I have any declarations of interest from any member? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The report states there's been money received from central government via Essex County Council. Me and Tony Headley are 2 hatters.
Same for you, Councillor Headley.
Yes, a declaration. I am an elected member of Essex County Council.
Okay, thank you. There are no further declarations of interest from members. Agenda item 3 is confirmation of the minutes from the Staffing Matters Subcommittee on the 12th of November. We're not asked to vote on these, but are there any matters arising? Or do we vote on this, Karina? Yeah, we do. All right, we'll vote on them. Are there any matters arising from the minutes of that subcommittee? No. Okay, can we unmute ourselves then? Councillor Smith, how do you vote on the minutes?
In favour.
Councillor Baggott?
For.
Councillor Headley?
For.
And I vote in favour as well. That is unanimous. Thank you, members. Agenda item 4 is the revised additional restrictions policy report. This committee has obviously received previously a report on the 4 grants that are available to businesses, and since we've met on Monday afternoon, we will be aware that the borough has been placed into tier 3 restrictions as part of the government's COVID response, and therefore as a consequence of that, our hospitality industry has been forced to close on Tuesday night at midnight from Tuesday night. So obviously that now means that has a knock-on effect to them over this weekend into the Christmas week and then into the foreseeable. The government has committed to reviewing the tiering system on a fortnightly basis. At the moment in Basildon, I think we should be honest and open with the public. Our number does continue to rise in terms of our infection rates, and therefore it is, I would suggest, prudent to assume that our hospitality businesses will remain closed beyond the 30th of December when this is all reviewed again. Therefore, we want to try and get as much support out as we possibly can. There has been a monumental effort from Shanna, Rob and Owen over the course of the last week to start looking at what we can do, going over and above what perhaps is written in black and white, reading between some of the lines as what is and isn't possible, and we're going to hear about that in a moment. But I'm also keen to just put on record as well, and again, officers can touch on this either now or in the next verbal report. All members have got a job to do to get out the fact that there is discretionary money available. We are not getting a huge take up of this at the moment. So we have to pump out the message that in regards to the discretionary grants, there is support that is there, financial support that is there for businesses, and we want those businesses to come to us. And we will action that as quickly as we possibly can. So, after this or whenever, we need to think about how we get that out into the public domain a bit more. But in the first instance, members, you have received a report here on the revised ARG to update that policy so that we can reflect the change in circumstances in the borough. Owen, do you want to kick us off?
Rob's going to take you through the report, Chair, if that's okay to introduce it.
Yeah, okay. Rob, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Okay, so for the revised additional restrictions grant policy, as you know, the additional restrictions grant was announced on the 31st October. Report was brought to Staffing Matters Review Subcommittee on the 12th of November. It particularly aimed at supporting businesses through Tier 2 restrictions, but due to the introduction of the new Tier 3 restrictions in the borough from the 16th, from this Wednesday, the committee is being asked to agree the following policy amendments. So initially, the removal of the clause that no grants shall be paid where businesses have received or been entitled to any other local restriction support grants from the council for the same period. and the addition to the policy of an excluded businesses section, so that large chain businesses cannot receive this additional support. Although, to be fair, the majority of these large chain businesses wouldn't qualify under state aid limitation rules currently in place. So in summary, this report is seeking to provide additional support from the Additional Restrictions Grant, that's our discretionary pot. This would be an additional one-off payment to every applicant within Basildon Borough that has been awarded either an additional local restrictions grant closed or a local restrictions grant open, or one of the additional restriction grants discretionary payments. A one-off fixed payment to support people through these new Tier 3 restrictions. It would only be applicable up until the first window for this application, which would close on the 10th of January, and then businesses would be able to apply again after 11th of January. There is a one-off fixed payment from funding from the additional restriction grant, which is either a £500, £1,000, or an additional £1,500, and this is dependent on the business's current rateable value if they have business rates liability, or is based on the previous grant the businesses have received if they don't have a business rates liability. It's to target support to local businesses who have potentially less financial resources during this Tier 3 lockdown period. So the recommendation is that the committee approves the amended additional restrictions policy as set out in enclosure number 1, and that you're asked to note the financial support that we're offering to our residents and businesses through Tier 2 and Tier 3 local restrictions, which we'll update you on after this report's been finished. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. So to just be really, really clear with the committee and anyone who is watching, we are, in terms of the additional or the change in the restriction, we are extending the application window to help more businesses. We're relaxing the policy to provide an additional one-off payment on top of grant payments, even where other grant has been awarded. We will be topping up all ARG recipients with a further one-off payment depending on their need of 500, 1,000 or 1,500 pounds, depending on the size of those businesses. And we'll be giving a one-off ARG grant to all qualified businesses for the LRG grant, open and closed, and again, a one-off payment there of either 500, 1,000 or 1,500. So just give it to, not sorry to put you on the spot here, Rob, but just give us an example, therefore, of I'm a restaurant in the Festival Leisure Park that has been forced to close on Tuesday night. What is available to me? Where can we go, and how much money is there potentially available today, this week, next week, over the next month for those businesses? Don't all rush.
Sorry, yeah, I wanted to know whether the channel was jumping or not. So at the moment they can, because they will be closed for this Tier 3 period, they, unless they're providing obviously a takeaway service, they can apply for the Local Restrictions Grant Closed Scheme, which is, if I get my figures up, off the top of my head, there's so many grants around at the moment. Depending on rateable value, it could be £667 for a 2-week period, £1,000 for a 2-week period, or £1,500 for a 2-week period. And if they want to make business adaptations to their property so they can be COVID secure, there's also the business adaptations grant they can apply for, which is again £500, £1,000 or £1,500, depending on what they want to use that funding for. But at the same time now, what we're recommending is that there is an additional payment on top of that to support them through this period of 500, 1,000 or £1,500.
So going above and beyond what
above and beyond
is what's there. And just to be clear, is this happening elsewhere or is it new?
No, this is well, as far as I'm aware, we're the only ones in Essex or across the country who are actually doing this as an additional from our discretionary scheme to help businesses. This is a really good thing to do. It's a great thing for the borough, and lots of businesses will I'm sure be very supportive of this.
Okay, good. Members, do we have, or Shanna, do you have anything to add to the report?
It's just worth saying, this report also goes a long way to help those that don't have a rateable value, so don't pay business rates. So things like our taxi drivers, our market traders, we're looking at giving them an additional payment as well, where potentially they don't fall into some of the other government grants. And that again will give them an additional payment of the 500, 1,000 or 1,500 as well. And we're also triaging them to look around business adaptations that will help them in terms of recovery and also now COVID containment as well.
So I think that's an important point. We, in the last Staffing Matters, we brought this policy in to help those people potentially slipping through the net, or who had previously been excluded from this because of the fact that they don't pay business rates. So that there is now a policy in place. We're going further today to support those people here as well. The AIDS and Adaptation Grant, so obviously that is there is a retrospective part of that. So just remind us of the date if you are a taxi driver. It's the
15th of October. Adaptations since the 15th of October moving forward, we can retrospectively give support for. And just to update against Karen on that, we've had probably 90% of our applications for the adaptations grants have come from Hackney Carriage and private carriages so far. Okay, and so we need to ensure that, obviously we can't predict the future, but clearly we suspect that there will be a need for these restaurants and cafes and bars and others to do more of the adaptations as we come out of tier 3. So we would be encouraging that even though your premises is closed right now, if you want to apply to get some adaptations done to your premises so that it can reopen the moment the government say we're back into tier 2 or tier 1, whatever it might be, they can still come now to apply even if they are closed. Yep.
Yes, that's right.
Lots of nods. Good. Okay. Councillor Headley.
Yeah, can I just ask a question, and to clarify, some of our community centres are run by community associations which may or may not be charitable trusts. All of those have been required to close. Are they eligible under this scheme?
If you don't mind me answering, yes, they absolutely are, and we have had applications from some so far already.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Councillor Baggett.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I first of all, I want to also thank officers for the hard work that they've put into this, because obviously it is important and of a big impact to the business community at large. And I think you're absolutely right. We do need to, as members, collectively get the message out that there are these grants available and get that far and wide. But I also think we have a responsibility to also be temperate in not giving the impression the sky is falling in and that this is something that's going to drag on and on. It could, but we also have to recognise that the government are working on making sure that people are safe, the businesses can function. It's in the vested interest of government, no matter what political persuasion, to ensure that as a country we're able to function and survive it economically. Everybody needs to take an element of responsibility in that, both as individuals and businesses. And what we need to do as community leaders is also to work up and if you like, try and find the positives where there are positives, and be telling people those as well, rather than just labouring on the negatives. And I know that the figures right now, for instance, are starting to look better and indicate that in Basildon we may have hit the peak. That there are other areas of Essex now that are definitely in a worse situation than us, and across the country there are places that are worse than us. With the vaccine being rolled out and the excellent work that again has been done by the council and by officers across the board with regard to the test and trace and tracking, that also helps to support our individuals and our residents. And with the vaccine being rolled out, I know that there are folk now across the borough that have started to receive the vaccine. Again, there are a number of indicators that in fact there is a light at the end of what's been a quite horrendous year for individuals and businesses. And I think that as community leaders we need to make sure that the language we use is reflective of the good points as well as just the bad.
Thank you, Councillor Baggett. I think I don't want to make this into a political argument, but I think one of the kind of the more galling points about what's happened to Basildon in the last week, of course, is that our hospitality sector have spent an enormous amount of money over the last 9 months getting themselves COVID compliant and getting themselves into a position where the pubs and the restaurants and the cafes can open in a COVID compliant and safe way. We, of course, had Eat Out to help out, a government initiative to force people to go out to those restaurants, pubs and bars. And when that happened, because of the aids and adaptations that these guys had made, our infection rate did not spike. And therefore, we could get into arguments about whether or not, going after hospitality as part of the tiering system is the right thing to do or not. But I don't think this is the time or place to do that. There is an issue about stigma. And there is an issue that we need to address more collectively about that stigma. You are absolutely right that Basildon is not responsible for Essex being in the position that it is in. There are a number of other authorities and boroughs across Essex that, as you say, their rate is rising at an alarming rate, far higher than ours. Our positivity rate in terms of infections does remain too high. It does need to come down, and even with more testing being done, it has remained at the level that it has, which is obviously we would have hoped that the more testing that had been done, the positivity rate would have been coming down quicker. So we know therefore that the virus is alive and kicking across the borough. But hopefully we will be able to take steps, particularly over this period where schools are closing and people are off work for business purposes. They're taking annual leave or whatever. Where it might reduce, and we can only hope. There is an issue. This is about fixed costs for business, and there is another auxiliary issue here, which is not lost on me, around the impact on casual and seasonal staff who do slip through the net and who are not supported by the furlough scheme. They're not supported by the self-employed scheme, and to whom next week is their biggest trading week. They make more in tips next week than they make in salaries for some months, and therefore it's a real kick in the teeth to those guys. They tend to be on the lowest incomes and in the most insecure employment, and we need to think about, as a council and more collectively, I would suggest, as a society, how we are going to help and support those people as well. So there's some more work to do on that, but in the first instance, let's see if we can help on the fixed costs for these businesses, both those who pay business rates and don't. Are there any further points from members? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, this is a good thing that publicans weren't expecting a grant of up to £1,000 or thereabouts if their primary function is a pub rather than a restaurant. That's a good thing. I mean, we've seen it since probably the mid-2000s. We've had supermarkets doing beer for silly prices. Then there was a smoking ban and deals on satellite streaming of football games, and it's killed a lot of pubs across the country. And once we get through COVID, I think we're going to see another wave of pub closing. So anything that helps the pubs cover the cost of the beer they've bought in, because beer doesn't keep. So if they've bought in spirits, okay, they'll be fine. But a pub that's been buying in beer, if we do go into lockdown after Christmas, which is where the likely money is, all of that beer that they've bought will be going straight down the nearest drain. So this is probably a really good thing to help save our publicans. And I would like to say as well that the government needs to think of more ways to support our pubs before what was happening with COVID and now what COVID is doing to our pubs. They're the centre of the community. And I'd rather people drink in a pub and overdo it at home. At least in a pub, people look out for them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And of course, that is a point around the amount of money that a lot of these businesses will have spent on stock, especially leading up to next week. And therefore, they're already well out of pocket without getting the income in that they would have been expecting. Owen, do you have any? Did you wave at me then? I don't know if you did. No. Okay. Members, in which case the recommendations 1 and 2 are on the report that has been sent. I could ask you to unmute yourselves. We will move to the vote. Councillor Smith.
In favour.
Councillor Baggott.
For.
Councillor Headley.
For.
And I vote in favour. So the recommendations are passed unanimously. Thank you, members. Can I ask Shanna for the verbal update, or Rob, the verbal update on where we are with the test and trace payments? Clearly, as I've just alluded to, our positivity rate has remained at around 12.5–13%. We want people who are testing positive to isolate. We need people who are testing positive to isolate, and therefore it is imperative that we are able to provide either the statutory or the discretionary payments to them. So, Owen, over to you.
Just going to say, Chair, the guys that do the presentation, we've got a brief presentation for members. It also picks up some of the wider things we've been touched on during this debate, just to remind members what's available in the round. There's people who are watching, which may be helpful for people who want to apply for what's available to them as well. That's okay, Chair.
Yeah, all right, let's do it.
Can everyone see our screen?
Yeah, can you, yeah, there you go, that's better.
Brilliant. Okay, so me and Rob are going to share some of this. In terms of the resident and COVID financial support to date, we just wanted to run through the support to our residents at the moment that's happened since March but onwards. So to date, council tax payment plans where we've helped those that have contacted us to say that they're unable to make payments for their council tax. We've supported over nearly 7,000 payment plans with our residents, which is huge. It's not withstanding the amount of resource that takes as well in terms of helping our residents with this, and it's been well received. Council tax reduction, we've seen a 14% increase in caseload. Whilst that doesn't sound like a huge amount, this amount in increase, actually lots come on and lots come off dependent on change of circumstances and dependent on what tier we've been in or different periods of lockdown. Obviously cases have come on and off, but overall there's been a 14% increase on council tax reduction. You may or may not remember in the beginning, we were offering, and we still are offering, a council tax reduction payment of £150 to those that are receiving council tax reduction, which is, as I say, a payment of £150. To date, we've awarded 9,685 of those, and so far supported our residents with 1.36 million in support there. And we still want to award as much of that as possible. Discretionary payments, we've always offered discretionary payments even pre-COVID, but since COVID we've seen a 20% increase in applications, which again is a significant increase. We've had over 839 test and trace applications assessed with over £156,000 paid to date. And we are doing everything in our power at the moment to ensure that customers can contact us, and we're working with partners and the test and trace services and those testing centres to try and push as many people to contact us as possible. There's two elements to this. There's a standard scheme that for those that are on benefits to help with isolation, and there's a discretionary scheme that the council's worked very, very hard at to secure further funding from Essex County Council for those that are working that have had an impact where they are unable to work to isolate. So we really plea as many people getting into contact with us as possible for those, because it isn't just about the £500. Actually, what's happened is over 80% of the applications that have been awarded have resulted in the award of other benefits and support. So we've offered debt advice. We've been able to help those that have been living under the breadline for a very, very long time. So they've been working, but actually they don't earn what we see or Universal Credit see as the minimum standard, and they have actually been able to go on to further benefits such as Universal Credit, the housing element to help with rent, and council tax reduction. So it's a huge, a huge plea there that please get in contact, because we're able to completely triage and assess all the circumstances there. In terms of support for residents around the community hub, customer services and revenues and benefits have jointly dealt with 14,265 calls. That continues to go up and spike on a weekly basis. We've dealt with over 5,300 emails, and we respond to every single email. None of those are automatic responses. We deal with every single situation. And out of hours voicemails, we've had over 410 of those. We continue to offer a welfare assessment, and that is around, at the moment, 1,577. We've dealt with those, where the prescription, hearing aid batteries, food bank support, but even deeper than that, we help with welfare checks just to check people are okay, where we've had phone calls saying that their loved ones are worried about them, they've had no contact. We've had issues where they're unable to contact the NHS for key things like breathing apparatus, which we deal with that, and we support that, as well as access to other benefits and triage, debt management. And we've also, been working with things like social services and lots of support around packaging that for our customers. I'm really proud to say complaints have reduced, and customer satisfaction remains above target, which I think in the scheme of things is incredible, and I'm very, very proud of the service. It's worth saying in the first lockdown, the service delivered a 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. service 7 days a week. We haven't continued with that service. We continued with it for a while, but we're assessing the need out of hours, and the need isn't there. And there's a number of our service team managers that check in through the weekends and the evenings just to see if there is anything urgent. But we rely on the urgent out of hours service now. But it's definitely, you know, I just want on record really just to say a personal thank you to the team. You know, we've delivered this service on goodwill, working out of hours, overtime. Their efforts have been, you know, we're so proud of their efforts, and they continue to work unbelievably hard with truly keeping the customer at heart of what they do. So we're so thankful to have such a brilliant team. The support for businesses, huge numbers. So the shared service, obviously we deliver not only for Basildon, but our services are continuing to also administer a service on behalf of Brentwood Borough Council as well. So our resources are well and truly tested in terms of, we not only do this for ourselves, but we do it for another borough. We've delivered over 57.8 million in mandatory and discretionary grants and 44 million in business rates relief to support our businesses affected by coronavirus restrictions. With government agencies naming our shared service as best practice in the delivery of the support that we've been offering. And it was nice to hear earlier on, we were talking about how we're really trying to be leading edge with, you know, pushing it as far as we can to make sure we get as much support out there for our customers and businesses. We've had over 3,311 COVID business calls to the hub, and over 1,500 emails were received into a dedicated mailbox for businesses with COVID related queries. Again, none of those are automated. We deal with every single email that comes in, and we made 163 business referrals to either licensing and the economic team. I know I keep banging on about this, but again, everything that comes in terms of new grants, not only do we deliver the day job and we deliver support for our shared services, significant amount of resources continue to deliver following all the schemes and grants that go live. And what happens with the schemes and grants around businesses that have gone live for us is the ones that you'll see on my screen at the moment, there is no end date to. Some will reduce in terms of, apologies, some will reduce in terms of we will be able to end the scheme when the money runs out, but the majority of these schemes run concurrently. So we have to assess everything that we're, you know, everything that we are doing. We have to look, is there a previous period that we can apply to these businesses in order to help them? So on the screen here, we have the open tier scheme. So those businesses that were affected by COVID, but were able to remain open between the 7th of October and the 4th of November. We received 253 applications, but that's still open, and we're still asking businesses, if between that period you were adversely affected and you're within the hospitality leisure industry, please contact us, because we can still look to apply funding for that period. So at the moment we've paid 109 of those. We've refused to date 114, and we're waiting further information on 30 of those. But again, 91,870, and we've still got allocation there to make sure that we get that out to the businesses. For businesses that were closed, we call it lockdown, the last lockdown between the 5th of November and the 2nd of December. Those that were had to close in line with government restrictions, 511 applications came in, and as you can see, we paid 452 of those. Again, if anyone believes, we've proactively contacted the ones that we knew that fell into our business rate relief, but if any people believe they are still eligible, please contact us. The discretionary ARG scheme, which we've just been talking about, we are continuing to deliver that and push that out as much as possible. To date, we've paid 247 of those, with a value at the moment around 328,000. And with what you've approved today, members, we'll look to see that go up by about 100,000 very quickly.
Shanna, just let me come in there. So I just want to get a sense, because this, I think, is the most important thing, this discretionary ARG, because this is the one that will get to the businesses that you know, perhaps don't have a rateable value, etc. So we're allocating a 3.7 million with a further 3.1 million to spend, but as yet we are only at the 328k mark, with 247 businesses or you know, having access to that. How many are we expecting, or should we? How many are eligible in the borough for this ARG? Do we know that figure?
We don't know that figure, and it is based on circumstances and the application that they fill out based on what they tell us about their business. What I would say is that we are offering this over 3 different windows. So this funding has to last us until 2021. So there is a finite amount of money that potentially could, depending on what the future holds, either have to support us through a recovery position, or in the worst case scenario, potentially further lockdowns. So we do as a council have to manage this finite amount of money. As I say, with the work with the approval that's just been made by the committee, we're expecting that proactively we'll be awarding about another 250 applications pretty much immediately. So again, this number will go out, but now we've made this decision up until the window period of the 10th of January. Anybody that applies for the closed scheme 2 and the open tiered scheme 2 will automatically get the top ups to the ARG as well.
Okay, all right. So really and truly, I mean, the 3.7 million there being spread, we should be at around £1 million mark then, if we're taking this logically, should we, in terms of how much we think we will be spending now? So there's a good sort of 650 still to go in terms of between now and the 10th of January of getting that money out. Yeah,
absolutely, and we project that to be about 1.1 million by the time we finish this window.
Okay, but we need people to come to us.
We do. We need them to apply. We will be as proactive as possible. So as I say, we will make proactive contact for all the ones based on your decision that you've made today, that we will be making this payment. The other grant that we're administering at the moment, the Business Adaptations grant, again, we've received 68 applications to date. We know there are many more to come in because we receive inquiries on a daily basis. So far, we've paid 32 to date. We paid 25,000. We expect to spend this money in full, and we are proactively working with a number of sectors about how we can support them. You mentioned earlier on, Councillor Callaghan, regarding hospitality and the recovery. So the aim of this Adaptations grant is around, any COVID compliance, public facing, looking at screens, any digital enhancements that will support your business around public facing, looking at things like outdoor heatings, canopies, and also we've spoken since to Essex County Council, and we've agreed that certainly with some of the applications we've received from the manufacturing sector, that they should make contact with us for a grant up to 1,500 on COVID containment, if there's anything we can do there, and that is new to the scheme, and we've publicised that, so we hope that those applications come in soon. And in terms of the next scheme, so open is from the 2nd of December. This is based on the restrictions that came in, and we've also got a closed application. We've had no applications for the closed yet, but you can see that the open scheme from the 2nd of December, we've had 87 applications to those, 74 paid to date, and so far we've paid out 47, nearly 47,500 on that. But it is worth saying that we just ask that businesses make contact to us. We're not asking you to navigate this huge complexity of grants and schemes that are available. We're offering out that if you can contact the coronavirus business email address, we will navigate this for you and offer and package the support where you're eligible for it. And again, if you are a small business and the actual circumstances are affecting you personally, we will also triage businesses through personal support in terms of anything that they're entitled to, whether that's as a worker or as a director of their company. Thank you.
Thanks, Shanna. Can we take that off so I can see the members? Thank you. Any member wish to come in on that? Any questions, points of clarification that anyone has? Tony, I don't know if you're talking to yourself, but you're on mute.
What is the coronavirus email address?
coronavirusbusiness@basildon.gov.uk.
Thanks.
Any other point from members? Look, I think fundamentally the point is there's a load of money there available. Is it enough? Is it ever? But it's there, and we've got to get it out, and we've got to find the people to get it out to. The good news is we've obviously gotten a lot of data over the last 9 months of businesses that we know exist, and therefore, Rob and Shanna, you're able to get that out quickly, particularly off the back of today. You'll be able to just award that and crack on based on the policy that we've just passed today. But crucially, we know that there will be businesses out there still eligible who are not yet coming to the council. So we need to have a big push collectively on this to get that money out. I don't know, Owen, do you have anything else you want to add at this point?
I think that's pretty much it, really. Obviously, just encouraging business to contact us. And as Shannon said, even they're unsure what they are eligible for, we will help them understand what they can get and make sure we give them what they're entitled to. And that's really the important bit. Even if you're not sure, still contact us. We'll help you and do what we can to support you.
Yeah, and I think, look, the other thing to say, there's a lot of numbers on that presentation, and that's good. That's the purpose of what you guys do. But there is also, I think, particularly on the thing around the hub and the calls and the conversations, there has been a person behind every one of those calls. And I think, I've spoken to a lot of officers who've been working in the community hub. They have had to deal with some incredibly heartbreaking stories this year, talking to people bereaved, people who've lost people from COVID, who have had issues with restrictions on funerals and the real human cost to this. People perhaps who've not passed away from COVID but have still been caught up in the restrictions. None of that was in the job description. So those officers who have, as you say, Shanna, have stepped up at weekends and late into the evenings to deal with that, have really, really done Basildon proud this year. And we thank all of them for everything that they have done, because, that I'm sure would have had an impact on them as well. So I know Stuart Young and others have been looking at support for our officers as well, as part of how we move forward into 2021. But that is a huge effort, and we can't lose sight of that during this, even though we are talking numbers and big monetary values. There is people at the end of all of this. Members, if there are no further points to be made here, I will thank you all, wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hopefully 2021, there will become a point in 2021 when none of us say the word coronavirus. And I look forward to that day. Thank you all, and goodbye.